Hey, welcome back to the Personality Hacker Podcast. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
If you can hear in the background, or maybe you're watching this online, you'll notice that we're not in our studio this week. We're actually in nature recording the intro for this podcast. And actually that speaks to what we want to do in this podcast. Here at Personality Hacker, our goal is to make personality types come alive in your life. And if you've been listening for a long time or you've been part of our community, you know that we're always looking for practical, tangible ways to express our individual personality types. This is very important to us.
Yeah, well, and I think we're moving our relationship to type away from being purely theoretical into something that is more embodied. That personality types are something that shouldn't just be understanding every square inch of a theory, but something that, if, like you mentioned, if we could make it come alive and we live it, then we can see the evidence of that in our relationships, in our career paths. Like it becomes something that allows us to truly get to know who we are on a much, much deeper level. And we've seen that happen with our profiler training students. We've seen the relationship that they have with type go from something that's theoretical to something that's a more embodied experience. Yeah. And because of that, the people who come through our profiler training courses, both the initial 101 course and then also the advanced courses, they tend to have some of the best advice for people that share their best fit type preferences.
Yeah. Well, actually, these students have been working often for months, sometimes even years, honing the craft of conversational profiling, which is a psyche-to-psyche experience that Carl Jung talked about,
right,
where you have a conversation with someone and help them arrive at their best fit type. And through the experience of doing that, building that skill, often you have to really reflect on your own life.
Right.
And you have to reflect on, how has personality type or understanding these concepts helped me grow as an individual? So what we did at the live event, we just got through with our profiler training event in Pittsburgh recently. We asked a few of our students if they would come up to the microphone. We did like a live gathering, basically a live recording together. We asked them to come up to the microphone and share some of the best advice they have for their personality type. I was blown away by some of the advice that some of the students gave. And I would love for you to both watch and listen to some of this and give your feedback, not only on what they're talking about with advice, but I'd love to hear from you. So right now, let's take you to the main stage at our most recent profiler training event, where we had several profiler training students come up to the microphone and share their advice. And I want you to hear how people are applying personality types in a very real, visceral and tangible way in their lives. All right. Okay. So we have a room of people here today that are at our profiler training, and I asked some folks if they want to come up and share some advice for people that are watching later around your personality type. So something that you have figured out from your perspective and your type, and advice you could share, something from your wisdom, the wisdom your lived experience has given you. So it's not theory, it's actually something practical that somebody could apply. Does somebody have something you want to share tonight? Something that would be great advice from your personality type to share? Right here, come on up, give them a hand. All right. So what is your name?
Kara.
Where are you from?
Chicago.
And what is your best advice based on your personality type? What is your type?
I have ENTP preferences.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's some advice you'd like to give to other ENTPs maybe?
Yeah, thank you. Well, as I stand here, what's coming up for me is that it's no surprise that I'm the first one that is sharing, because we love to share. I mean, one of the things about being an ENTP is that the mind is just perpetually going in these loops of ideas and connections, and we really believe that it's our gift to share all of this with everyone, and the detail of it and in the amount that's firing in the brain is really, really intense. And what you discover as an ENTP, because there's, I don't know the exact percentages, but I mean, I know that ENTPs are 2 to 4% of the population or something like that. And, especially being a thinker woman, that this is, a little strange for most of the population. So having that FE tertiary is something that really makes this a unique place to be, because the FE tertiary is this place of the eternal child. And it's the place where we go for play. And it's the place that we have this eternal optimism. And we have this belief that everybody is going to love having our presence in the world because I'm coming from this place of such pure, good-hearted intention. And yet the way that we sometimes show up, I've gotten feedback that it can be like drinking from a fire hose. Oftentimes as I am going through my brilliant TI deductions, I see like eyes glaze over. And so there's this like really deep need for connection. And yet the ways that we sometimes show up can be disconnecting for other types. So I would say that just coming into this awareness that I feel this deep resonance with the community that identifies as neurodivergent, because if we want to think about what does that mean?
Yeah.
When we think about what does the average person look like, it's not an ENTP, and it's definitely not an ENTP female. So I think that in a world, especially where women are expected to sort of merge and mold, and the ENT personality has a lot of intensity to it and it doesn't have the warmth that people are typically used to with an FE. So when we sort of just show up and just name things and call things out and are seeing things in society that just don't vibe with us, that can really be shocking for people. So I thought I'd start there.
Yeah, so what I hear you saying is you've had the experience of kind of data dumping, fire hosing, a lot of information. People's eyes would glaze over, they'd tune out. And so the wisdom that you've learned through the years, your experience is, I have to not just lead with all that blast of info. I've got to kind of meet people where they're at, be a little bit more interfacing. Is that what you're?
Well, and for me, it's really come from groundedness.
Okay.
Like I sometimes talk about being an ENTP as like a snow globe. And so when my NE and TI start to get too jazzed up, it makes sense to me. But if I actually want to communicate it in a way that can actually land with somebody else, I've learned the importance of really connecting with my breath, connecting with my body. Even now, I'm feeling my feet on the floor and really coming back to that heart-centric quality, because as somebody who has introverted feeling down as that seventh function, and your FE is third function, it's really easy for us to come across as not being connected to that human element. And it's very true that we can kind of lose people in that. And there's an element of being an ENTP that can become like a form of mental masturbation, because we are having a great time with whatever it is that's going on up here, but we may not actually have somebody that's in that space with us.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to lose that, and the grounding feels really important.
Thank you. Yeah. Any specific, I know this, I'm asking ENTP this, but anything specific, an action step or something that you could leave with someone? Maybe there's an ENTP listening right now or watching you, hearing this and saying, well, it's resonating what you're saying. I identify with what you're saying. How do I do this? How do I make sure that I'm weaving this into my life?
Well, for me, I started with an insight meditation practice. Okay. And I actually spend 7 to 10 days in silence, like every 9 to 12 months, because I really feel like taking away this external presentation is super important to just allow that snow globe to settle. And then if I can sort of invite some of that, that's telling you to stop.
You brought your own timer to make sure you didn't go overboard.
And I need those kinds of cues, because one of the things about extroverted intuition is that it's timeless. And so it's really helpful for me to have boundaries. And it's really like that radical honesty is also such a gift.
Yeah.
When all of my friends that are in my inner circle know that when I get excited, I will lose presence. And if they're starting to lose connection with me, it's so supportive if they're like, sweetheart, I love you and I'm not with you right now. Can you wrap it up with a thought, or how about we pause and take a breath?
Yeah. And
that really helps me to recenter. And I think it's really important for ENTPs to try to get at that kernel of truth, because the details often don't matter. And I think that one of the things that we lose when we're communicating is that we think that showing the math and giving all the data is actually going to influence people. And people rarely remember what we say, but they remember the feeling that they're left with once they leave you. Yeah. So as an ENTP, if I can ground, if I can stay in my heart, if I can open that up and really say, what do I want to be in service to? as opposed to getting lost in the mental masturbation, which is really a solo activity.
Yeah.
I think that as an ENTP, the more we can stay connected to that and also have grace for the times that we won't.
Yeah.
Because when we are low resourced, there's a sort of manic element that can develop. And when we get overtaxed, there's almost like an agitated depression that starts where we get a little combative, a little aggressive, and we just lose track of who's there because that heart goes offline.
Yeah.
So I think that that's what's most important to remember.
Great. Thank you so much. Give them a hand. Somebody else have something? Yes. Come on up. What is your name?
I'm Morgan.
Where are you from?
INFJ. I am from Albany, New York.
And you just did say your best fit type. What was it?
INFJ.
INFJ. Fantastic. So do you have some advice for INFJs that you?
Yes. It can be really difficult to get needs met because we often don't accept that we have needs. And for me, a real key to that has been to ask the question, do I feel loved by myself? It's super easy to step into self-care and say, oh, I'm doing this thing for myself, and it's just the next Instagram post. It's just the next way of feeling productive. It's the way of patting ourselves on the back and feeling we accomplished something. It's not a heartfelt healing thing, but stepping into healing and saying, do I feel loved by myself?
Yeah.
Takes it to a whole new level. And it's really helpful when you're working with children, when you're working with immature aspects of yourself,
Yeah.
when you're working with immature others, to hold space for that inner child. And it's super easy to step into a parenting role and think about what I might say to myself, say to my inner child. It's really difficult to step into that inner child and receive that advice, to receive love from the inner parent.
Yeah. So, by the way, you can ask any questions or jump in here too. I just am curious to follow up. So you've made a distinction in your mind or your life by asking, what was it? How do I show myself love? What was the exact phrase you used?
Very specifically, do I feel loved
Do
by
I
myself?
Feel loved by myself,
Right.
not just supported regarding my needs met.
It's
but
easy to love myself.
Yes.
It's easy to do things that are loving. I do it for other people all the time.
Gotcha.
It's very difficult to get to the point where I can actually say that I feel loved by myself. I spent 35 years without ever experiencing that.
Yeah. What I hear you saying is that it's hard to receive, right? It's much easier to give, but it's hard to receive, especially with INFJ preferences. You have extrovert feeling, so giving is easy. What I hear you saying is that when you give love to yourself, do you receive love from yourself?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. It's very easy to perform the actions and not perceive a real difference or actually feel connected to that.
Right. I think that's a beautiful reframe.
Yeah.
To say, do you love yourself? That seems to be the complete equation. But there's another half of that equation, which is that, yes, I do. I receive that love from myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Do I feel loved by myself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any strategies or how have you learned to receive that love from yourself, to feel loved by yourself?
It was a felt experience. I had to break up with somebody. And it was one of the most difficult messages I ever gave. And I spent a lot of time anticipating how they would receive that.
Yeah.
And I finally decided that I needed to say it anyway for my own sake. And I went through a often anticipated process of sending a message and then expecting this heavy load of anxiety while I waited for a response. And I was absolutely flabbergasted to discover that I felt relieved. I felt loved by myself. And it completely changed everything for me. It was another 6 months before I felt that again. And it was a completely different experience, but that was an epiphany.
That's fantastic.
So it started with awareness, right? And then was there when you felt it again, was there any way that you helped concretize it or solidify it?
It was such an enlightening moment that I was kind of holding out for it. I was aware of the possibility and I was kind of looking for it. And it was such a strong moment, obviously not something often repeated. But because I was aware of it, I was able to observe it in less intense situations from then on.
Yeah, fantastic.
Cool.
Right.
Thank you.
Do you
I appreciate that. Yeah. More than a hand. Somebody else. Yes. Come on up. What is your name? Oh, you have a mic being thrown at you. What is your name?
Hi, I'm Diane.
And Diane, where are you from?
I am from Washington State.
Washington State. What are your best fit type preferences?
ENFJ.
ENFJ. And so you're here to share some ENFJ advice with us?
I am.
Some wisdom?
Yeah, so just starting out from the EJ frame, EJs, EFJs are very in tune with the needs of everyone else. And it takes a lot longer to get around to understanding that I have needs too. And so I went through more than 40 years of my life being incredibly aware of everyone else's needs. And then it got to a point where I wasn't able to meet those needs very well. And I think that came from a place of really not knowing my own needs. I was neglecting my own needs. I didn't know myself well. I had no self-identity outside of what I gave to everyone else. And so it took a major pain point in my life for me to look inside and figure out what is going on. Why am I no longer able to do what I was able to do my whole life? And so it took self-reflection. And so that would be my advice, is to do that earlier than 40 something.
Yeah.
And discovering lots of things, but discovering Personality Hacker got me on that journey. So that would be one piece of advice, find whatever tool it is. And I think this is an amazing tool that you guys offer to help look inside as an EJ. And it also helped me realize that I was an ENJ. And as an ENFJ, I blended quite well. And I was very good at using perspectives for everyone else, but I never let myself use it for me. And going through all of these experiences with y'all, through all the classes that I've gone through, I've learned to use it for myself, which makes it even more calibrated to use for everyone else. And that's what feels really good.
Yeah.
So perspectives, introverted intuition.
Yes.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you do beyond learning about personality type and allowing that to make shifts inside? What are other things that you do in order to tap into your introverted intuition?
I think I've learned to give myself permission to pursue things just for me. I felt guilty for a long time to take the time for just me. And I've learned to do that. And I've had a very supportive family and we've been waiting for you to take the time to do something just for you. Please do stuff just for you.
Was that surprising to you that they said that?
It was very surprising.
You didn't expect that?
Right. It was a bit of letting the ego go. What do you mean? Don't you need me? How am I going to go over there and do all this stuff? You guys are going to fall apart, right? No, they're fine. And I'm better for it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I hear you saying is that when you allowed yourself to not be as needed, right? That was maybe even part of your identity, or yeah. Okay. And so when you allowed yourself to go, well, maybe it's okay to not be needed every moment and to start doing things for myself, suddenly you realized that the needs that were going unmet, that you had permission to meet them, that it was okay. And actually everybody around you was totally cool with that. And in fact, supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it took a major incident to make that happen. And I kind of realized what it was in an exercise we did earlier. But essentially, I'm going to share something a little personal, but my daughter at 17 ran away. And as soon as I knew she was safe, I was proud of her.
Wow. Wow.
I was like, what is that?
You're able to shift into the perspective she's coming from, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You were able to use this tool to see, okay, she's experiencing this.
Yeah. And I think I was proud of the fact that she acted on her own behalf, and nobody was gonna tell her what needed to be done and what was right for her. She took that into her hands.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for sharing all this.
One question. Do you suspect, it just came up while you were talking, we get a lot of feedback from EFJ types that they're in one-sided relationships and that nobody's taking care of their needs, and it always feels like they're doing for everybody else and no one's doing for them. when you were able to separate from that identity and not have to be needed as much, do you have as much of that dialogue in your head that all your relationships are one-sided and you're always giving? Or did you realize, actually, maybe that's not as true?
Yeah, I think it did open up that, where you could see that there was more of a give and take.
Yeah. Right. There's probably still a little of that, though, right? Yeah, always will be.
It's a process.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Give him a hand. All right. Please. Oh, we have somebody else coming up to give more advice. What is your name?
Hi, I'm Jenny
Jenny, where are you from?
from Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee. What are your best fit type references?
My best fit type is INFP.
INFP. So you have some advice for INFPs watching right now?
I do.
All right.
Yeah, I would just want to send out some love to all of my INFP siblings. For some reason, I always think about other INFPs as my brothers and sisters. And I do have some advice. And that advice is, I have a question for you to ask yourselves. And the question is, what do you long for? The reason this is important is that for INFPs, feelings are so important. And our own feelings are very important. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but occasionally INFPs have trouble getting motivated. Occasionally we procrastinate. And so one of the things that I've found happens when I'm not motivated, when I procrastinate, when I'm slow to do things I'm supposed to do, is that I'm not connected to my own feelings, to my own values. And so there's just that spark that goes out of my life. And so in those moments, if I can stop and say, what do I long for? And then I can get connected to that thing. And sometimes that requires some action. Sometimes that requires some effort or some changes in your life or in my life. But when I've been able to connect to something that I really long for and desire, everything changes. It's kind of like the lights come on. And so it's important. It's important, as we're hearing that people with FE high up in their stack, they have to ask themselves, how do I love myself? And for FI, I think it's important to connect to our own emotions, to actually know ourselves, to know our desires, and then to connect.
So, okay, somebody might say to you, wait a second, I'm going to play a little devil's advocate with you here and maybe just create a little bit of understanding. Somebody might say, wait a second, INFPs need to connect to their emotions? I have an INFP in my life, let's say, somebody might say, then all they are is connected to their emotions. Jenny, are you out of your mind and more connected to their emotions? Maybe there's a distinction here that you have around this, because I think a lot of people's experience of INFPs are they're very emotional.
Right. Yeah, it's a great question. I do make a distinction between emotions and feelings. And so to me, emotions they change very quickly. And as an INFP, I've learned to sort of surf through those emotions, and they can really derail you if you allow them. For me, my feelings are deeper and they connect me with my values. So when I speak about longing, what do you long for? Longing is a specific feeling for me, and it is something that connects me to myself. It's sort of a channel or an avenue that I'm able to connect to myself. And just as an example, I was very burned out several years ago and not finding joy in my work and not motivated at all. And I asked myself the question, what do I long for? And I realized that I just wanted to stop. I wanted to stop with all the activity, all the deadlines, everything I had to do. I took 30 days off, and I actually, one of the things I did was I went up into the mountains and I hiked for 5 days. And I just got away from everything, from all the busyness and everything that I was doing. And it was really transformational. But it started with that question, what do I long for? And that was the answer. So that's my advice for other INFPs.
Yeah, and I like the what do I long for more than what I desire. It feels, I don't know, there's something about that word that you chose, long for. Like that is a really interesting word.
Well, I think what comes up for me when you say that is that there might be some challenges INFPs have with permission, right? If I long for something, it might be something that I'm almost denying myself. And that's why I'm longing for it, is because I'm not allowing myself to want it. And so what did you do to give I heard your story about being burnt out and giving yourself some time and space, but is there anything else that you do to effectively give yourself permission to even ask the question and look at it directly?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For me, I think it's just the experience of knowing what happens when I don't give myself that permission. I've been living long enough to have experienced what happens when all I do is push myself and you know, get into my TE, but you know, where I'm just constantly working hard all the time, and pretty soon I just give out. And so I know what happens when I don't give myself that permission. For INFPs, boy, those feelings are so important, and to be able to connect and to give yourself that gift of really stopping to. It's not, to me, it's not optional.
Yeah.
If you're going to lead a full life and really, you know, not come to the end of your life and have lots of regrets, it's something you need to ask yourself.
So part of it is space and time, right? Introverted feeling is not a fast process.
That's right.
So what I hear you saying is that if you give yourself space and time, then it becomes easier to tap into what is being longed for. And then once you see it, you can't unsee it.
That's exactly right. That's a very good way to put it. And hopefully if you do see it, you won't push it away.
Yeah.
And I would also encourage INFPs to make this a lifestyle and to ask that question short-term as well as long-term. And so you start to create a full lifestyle, you know, or a whole life around following those goals and seeing a vision and then making it into reality.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Awesome
much.
advice. Thank you, Jenny. Your hand. All right, who else? Do you have anyone else? Someone's making their way here as fast as they can. Multiple people. Okay, over here. Yes. Your name?
Johnson,
Johnson. Where are you from, Johnson?
Toronto, Canada.
Canadian.
Yes.
You're allowed. It's fine.
You can,
It's
if you want
really
to,
cool.
You can also manipulate the microphone.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, you can do that. I think we can hear him. Okay, right. Best fit type preferences.
INTJ.
INTJ. So you're gonna give us INTJ advice.
Yeah. So my INTJ advice would have to do with desire, and that it can be a dangerous goal if that is the goal. Because if, as an INTJ, you start out with just desire without actually putting in the work to earn it, then you take dangerous routes, such as going shortcuts or trying to find the fastest way to get things done. And that has repercussions in other people's lives and in your own life. And I speak of this from, life experience. So the key is, I think, self-awareness. And for me, it also came from Personality Hacker, getting to know my type, and learning that there is a way out for the struggles that happen in our lives. And that's our co-pilot function. So in this case, it would be TE. And that means building the resources and the structures on the outside.
Yeah.
And I can do that for other people. I've done it easily, but I never structured my own life. I took the shortcut way to get those desires, and I've been burned by it.
Yeah.
I didn't felt like I earned it, like I was a fraud. And learning that, yeah, it's hard, but this is what you should do. This is the way that things have to be in order for me to feel like I earned it, that I can feel genuinely happy for myself, and not just a fake feeling of happiness from people being impressed.
Yeah. I have a real quick question. If you could give so did you have a moment, like an exampled moment where you got your desire and you sat there and were like, it doesn't feel good because I feel like I took a shortcut. You actually had this moment
Mm-hmm.
when you felt that?
Yeah. Moments.
Or an experience, maybe not exact moment, but is there a story here that this,
Okay, yeah.
is this a real experience for you, or is it
Yeah.
just something you kind of ethereally came to?
Yeah, sure. I'll give a personal example. So, I had a girlfriend once, and things went by so quickly. I was just doing so many shortcut methods to make us both happy. It's like how to fulfill her desires, how to get a life that it seems like we both want. And in the end, it just sort of crumbled away. It crumbled because I wasn't seeing things for what they were, that this was not built on anything sustainable. That I was trying to keep something going, in this case, the relationship, that it was already ending. And I just couldn't see it because I was so blinded by desire. And now, single again, but happier because I'm building my life. I'm building the resources. I am trying to become more disciplined and learning that it's hard. There's times that you don't want to do it. You don't want to work out 4 days a week. You just want to sleep in. But then if you do that, you take a look at yourself. It's like, what did I do? Nothing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
INTJs, one of the biggest things that they report is that they feel like they lack energy. And so what I hear you saying is if that feeling of lacking energy, although you didn't connect it, that's what I'm connecting because I know that's an INTJ challenge. If you allow that to encourage you to skip steps, then you won't have felt like you won't feel like you've earned what you have. And so as somebody who has learned the challenge of unearned, results,
Yeah.
right? Do you feel like you lack energy now that you're kind of, it sounds like you're grinding it out and building those resources? Do you still feel like you lack energy?
Well, I was thinking some practical examples from what you just said, and I was like, no, I don't feel like a lack of energy anymore because I have a proper diet. I engage in exercise, and you think exercising would drain you of energy, but it actually gives you so much more that you can actually combat your day, attack it in this case. And I feel so much more resourced, especially being here at the live event. I can engage with people, and I don't feel like I just have to retreat and just, not talk to anyone.
Yeah.
That's great.
So building resource sounds like it's generative. It creates more resource. And so expending energy creates more energy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Johnson.
Fantastic.
That's great advice for INTJ. In the hand. Who's next? We have anybody else? Going once, we have someone coming up now. Hello. What is your name?
I'm Joe.
You are Joe. Where are you from, Joe?
Seattle.
Seattle, Washington. And what are your best fit type preferences?
ISTP.
We have a sensor. It gives advice. Fantastic. ISTP. We got a comment on a recent video like, don't sensors need advice? And so you're here to provide some sensor advice. So ISTP advice is what I'm guessing.
Yes.
What's the best you've learned? What's something you want to offer?
Well, I want to say specifically through using, personality type, Myers-Briggs system, and learning about the inferior function in my case, which would be extrovert feeling, and recognizing that as a blind spot, which I, definitely saw in myself, but realizing there is a pattern to this blind spot, and so the blind spot in general being something that is scary, and everybody's blind spot is scary to them.
Yeah.
Like, it's something that I definitely have less skill in, less comfort in, with making connections with people, making friends, dealing with other people's emotion, and trying to, I guess, realizing that is just the pattern in general, and remove myself from it a little bit and see that a lot of the reason why it's scary is just because it's the inferior. It's not necessarily that I'm genuinely bad at it and everybody is like thinking about it as much as I am.
Yeah.
So just kind of acknowledging that it's something that's always going to be kind of scary for me, but a lot of that is in my own head, and it's still difficult, but being able to, shift my own mentality around it a little bit because of this system has been a really helpful tool.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
By the way, are you out of your comfort zone right now?
Very much.
Okay. Congratulations. That's good. 'Cause I'm sure you've done a lot of work around, you're up in front of a whole group of people, like this is on camera and all this stuff. I don't mean to make it more freaky for you. Don't remind all this. Yeah, you're rolling with it though. You're doing a great job, Joe. So you want to say something? I just have a thing I wanted to kind of ask here. What I think I hear you saying about this inferior, the thing that comes up for me is, I heard somebody talk about our bodies, like he was talking about being able to do a split, right? Like gymnast split. And this person was expressing, it was like YouTube videos watching, like pretty much all of us have capacity for it. It's just when we go into that, our survival mechanisms in our body like freak out and like constrict our muscles. And so people that are able to do that can almost like override that's terrible, and like be able to like go into that muscle and like let it release or whatever. I don't know the science behind it. I'm just kind of connecting as I go. The point I'm trying to make is that's kind of what it sounded like what you were talking about the inferior is.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to come up, it's going to get that trigger, almost like your muscles like restricting to do the split, but you're like, I just need to calm that down. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. I just have to override my natural survival mechanism maybe or whatever.
Yeah, and an awareness of that reaction in myself, and realizing that a lot of it is my own head and my own worries about it, and not necessarily the fact that I am horrible at FE all the time.
Yeah.
I think if I can override that immediate reaction and step back and look at myself objectively, I'm probably not as bad as I think I am in my own head.
Yeah.
Do you have, obviously getting out of your comfort zone is one of the things that you do, right? You're willing to do, which is fantastic. But is there anything else that you've practiced since you realized that extroverted feelings are inferior function? It's going to be a place of deep uncertainty. And even if you're like, hey, actually, I'm not that bad at this, but there's always going to be that, am I? Is there anything else you're doing to basically calm that sense of uncertainty down?
I have to think about that. I mean, that is the big thing right now, is genuinely just exposure.
Yeah.
Because I know from myself that doing things more than once, you kind of get used to the feeling, and you know how it's going to feel, and you can do it again, and you already know what to expect. And that's kind of that's the angle I'm coming from right now.
Yeah,
Good.
like a willingness to do it.
Know that it's gonna feel really uncomfortable, but it's gonna be a little less uncomfortable the next time. And
Oh, fantastic.
Hey,
Thank you.
this is awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Give her a hand. Thank you, Joe. Everybody else? Yes? One more? Should we take one more? Two more? One more? Let's do one more. Come on down. Yes? It's all good. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So what is your name?
Hi, my name's Hillary.
Hillary, where are you from?
I'm from Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. I live in Pennsylvania too. So you're like sort of a neighbor. Not that close, but sort of a neighbor. What are your best fit type preferences?
ESFJ.
Oh, we're ending with sensors tonight. All right, so another sensor. This is fantastic. Good news. So ESFJ advice, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I wanted to speak to my fellow ESFJs who may be struggling with burning out, kind of how my ENFJ sister over there kind of touched on. Using Myers-Briggs helped, and Personality Hacker specifically helped me reflect on how to reapproach when I would burn out, on exhausting myself, on focusing and anticipating on everyone else's needs and feeling resentment when it didn't get reciprocated. Overall, your loved ones cannot read your mind. You have to also remind yourself that.
You're talking to an ESFJ right now. Listen.
Yeah, I to my fellow ESFJs, like when you are frustrated and feeling one-sided and your needs aren't getting met, remember they can't read your mind, and that you are a part of the group, so you need to remind them and let them know to help them help you.
Gotcha.
Tell them what you want. Tell them what you need. before you get to that point of yelling at them of, well, how dare you, or like, I can't believe you're not thinking about me and what I want or what I need, you need to let them know, like, because ultimately your loved ones don't want to hurt you. They want to help you too, but they can't do it as naturally as you can do it for them.
Gotcha. So what I hear you saying is, I'm going to extrapolate a little bit, but an ESFJ who is serving people in their family or their friends or whatever, resentment can build maybe, or frustration or an explosion, or like feeling maybe like, why is nobody caring about me and loved and like, poured into? Because the ESFJ is giving all the time, tracking this, like I'm giving these people, I'm tracking all this, maybe assuming that they're tracking it back, like tracking like when you're giving so much, when you need something back. And what you're saying is, look, people aren't tracking that like you are, ESFJ. Like you might be the only person tracking it in your environment. You have to be more direct. They'd probably love to serve you, but you got to let the rest of us know that, like you need something.
Exactly.
Okay. And is there anything specific that you do? Like, do you just have a direct conversation, like with your partner, with people in your life? Like, do you say, hey, I really need you to step up and, help with this thing today? Or
yeah, I will directly tell my others again, like, I first remind myself, hey, my needs are important too. I need to make sure that I convey them, like, and I take that space to be like, hey, I might have a hard conversation to discuss right now, and it can get a little messy, but I need this. If it's with my partner, hey, can we put the video games away for a little bit and like just spend some quality time on the couch together and talk? Like, and ultimately, instead of just like, oh, you know what, they're enjoying playing their video games, I'm going to give them their space while I'm feeling left alone and heartbroken. They put the game away, they're like, oh, of course I want to spend time with you. You're important to me.
Yeah.
They're going to reciprocate and show you how important you are to them as long as you tell them what you need as well. They're not trying to be selfish. They just don't know.
Yeah. And this has probably been a stretch for you. This is growth. Like this wasn't, you sound like, oh, this is easy, ESFJs, you're listening, just do this. But this is probably hard
won.
won.
It was a lot of work. It was a lot of meltdowns and a lot of fights.
Yeah.
A lot of crying.
Yeah. With yourself or with other people?
Like loved ones too. Like when it would get to that point.
Oh, because you would explode or emote.
Yeah,
or like, how dare you? That
yeah,
kind of
like,
okay.
Like, I do all of this for everyone. Why does no one care about me too? Like the existential and like just yelling into the universe cry.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I think that's great advice.
Of course, thank you.
And all right, everyone. Thank you so much for tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you for all the great advice. So those were some of the profiler training students on the main stage at our most recent profiler training event in Pittsburgh. And you just clearly saw them give some of their best advice. I thought it was fantastic advice based on not just theoretical understandings, not just hearsay or something they read on the internet, but embodied stuff they've actually used in their real life, something that they've worked with in a visceral, tangible way. They've made personality types and the understanding of the system come alive in their life, and that's what we want for you too. So what do you think? Come over to personalityhacker.com under this episode, leave a comment, ask a question, or more importantly, share a story about your best advice from your personality type, not the theory, not something you've read on the internet. What have you actually put in practice around type in your own life, and what could you share with us and other people of the similar type that could benefit from it? We want to hear from you, so come over to personalityhacker.com and make your voice heard.
And if you enjoyed this podcast, you can subscribe to us on iTunes and various Android platforms. If you leave us a rating and review on iTunes, it helps us out a lot, and I read every one. You can also watch us on YouTube. You might be doing so right now. If so, if you could like this video, you can also subscribe and hit the little bell that lets you know when a new episode comes out. We have a book, it's called Personality Hacker. You can get it in all major book retailers, and if you leave us a rating review on Amazon or on Goodreads, that also helps us out a lot. And of course, we have a suite of programs that are designed to help you make personality come alive in your life. As Joel was mentioning, not just theoretical, but an embodied experience that really helps you move the needle in your life.
And I just want to mention that if it's a time for enrollment for our profiler training program, we'd love to have you in this program to learn the art and skill of conversational profiling. Basically having that psyche-to-psyche conversation like Carl Jung talked about at the beginning of the origination point of type and how we use all of this stuff. It was a conversation that Carl Jung wanted people to have with each other. And so this program teaches that skill, that methodology, and how to arrive at a best fit type with another person in that conversation. We want you to have that skill. So this is an enrollment time period. You should check it out online. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
And we'll talk with you on the next Personality Hacker podcast.
Hey, it's Joel from Personality Hacker. So a big reason people get into personality types is usually to improve their relationships with other people. And you can understand key differences between you and someone else when you understand how type works. So clearly, personality type is applied to relationships. But what about the relationship with yourself? Well, personality type can also help you navigate your career, or maybe an educational path that you need to follow, or other opportunities that present themselves, and it helps you know which are the right choice for you. And ultimately, personality is the key to unlocking identity-level worldview and life purpose. It all starts with getting the owner's manual for your personality type. In this owner's manual, we cover the basics of your personality, and then we dive a layer deeper to connect your personality to your relationships, your career, your worldview, and identity, because we believe it's your life, and it should be designed for your personality. So start your owner's manual journey at personalityhacker.com. When you access your owner's manual, I recommend focusing on the ideal day exercise first, because when you start crafting your ideal day, you're being mindful about the type of lifestyle that you want. So designing a life around how you're naturally wired makes sense, and you can finally stop fighting yourself. So come discover and develop your unique personality at personalityhacker.com.